All right, well, welcome to Pepper Soup Talk, where we bring to the table movers and shakers in the African diaspora. This is the first talk of 2021, and we have a special guest with us today, a Philadelphia native. He's an experiential marketer. He's been an experiential marketer for 10 plus years. He's worked with some of some of the biggest brands, from McDonald's to Atlantic City. But the exciting part about this conversation today, along with hearing about his journey and what he's done in his career, is some of his philosophies around how he goes about setting his goals and goes about filling the gap between where you are and where you're looking to be. He probably doesn't know this, but a lot of the conversations that we've had or that I've been around to hear him talk, I've literally pulled out my phone and started taking notes because he's dropped such knowledge and wisdom. So for everyone tuned in today and who's going to watch this video, you're going to get a lot of value out of things that he has to say around goal setting and hearing about his journey. So welcome to Pepper Soup Talk, Mike Morrow.
I appreciate you having me, brother. I appreciate you having me. It's COVID season, so we got to do that. Can't wait to shake hands again.
No, definitely.
Cool.
So just getting right into it. I know you're a Philly native, but if you can talk a little bit more about your background and also what exactly experiential marketing is. And how you got into it.
Sure. So, technically, I am a Philly native, but I have to be very clear because Philly is one of those cities. If you don't literally live like right in the middle of the city, then they won't claim you. So, I grew up in West Philly until I was 10. Very transparent. My mother had a drug addiction, and my father, his career was on the upswing. He was getting married. And he picked me up when I was around 10 years old and moved me to Collegeville, which is about, let's say, 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. So it was literally kind of like a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air move, not to rich, but at least to middle class, where it was like I failed first grade, was really not in a stable home situation. And then my father picked me up. He was getting married soon. We moved to the suburbs. I was one of, probably 4 or 5 black kids in the school district where I ended up growing up, which was called Collegeville. And you asked me about experiential marketing.
Well, before we get there, so you're from West Philly, West Philadelphia, born and raised. Really like Fresh Prince story. And Collegeville is just for if you don't know. So is that close to KOP?
It's like 20 minutes past King of Prussia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was it like growing up in such a different environment? Like did it really feel like fresh Fresh Prince, different environment?
Originally, just getting up there, the biggest kind of upswing was just the learning gap. I was coming from a different type of school district. And I look back, almost makes me like shed a tear where I'll see some of my old work when I was like 9 years old. I couldn't spell my name. I was spelling my name M-I-C instead of M-I-K-E. So really couldn't read. And then I went into one of the best school districts in the state, which was I think Perkiomen Valley School District. So it's like you go from, A to Z quick.
Yeah.
And, just there was a little bit of racism. That's the first time that I really truly saw a difference and got called the N-word on the playground and just not being able to walk to a corner store. You know what I'm saying? Like just small things like that. But it was truly a different way of life, and I hated it. But now that I'm grown and kind of see some of the benefits that came from it, really helped me out.
Right. That's cool. So went through grade school in Collegeville, and then you were here for college too, right? In Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I ended up settling in on Millersville, which
Okay.
is I had we call him uncle, but it's I come from a basketball house. You know, my father played basketball, and a good friend of his, who I just call Uncle Phil, but a good friend of his was a star at Millersville University. His name was Phil Walker, and Mr. Phil ended up going to he played for the Bullets before they were the Washington Wizards, and he got me into he didn't get me into Millersville, but he talked to the coach, kind of co-signed me, and I ended up playing my college career there. And I enjoyed it. You know, it was if I could have done it all over again, I probably would have went to an HBCU. But I don't have any regrets. I enjoyed it. It was a decent sized college.
Okay.
A good time.
Did you get into marketing while you were there?
No, I was into very specifically girls and basketball. So that's what I majored in college. But I ended up graduating with a degree in communications.
Okay, so that was the real love in basketball.
You know, that's funny because I definitely had a love and basketball situation when I was up there. So yep.
Yeah, right. Cool. So so getting into experiential marketing. So what was the entry point into that? And did you use your communications degree at all?
So I joke around a lot and say that like I never used my degree, but ultimately I'm technically in the communications business now. How I got into experiential marketing was kind of happenstance, but I believe that everything's almost happenstance. So after college, I got a job in sales selling litigation support services. So what that was like we were like 24-hour Kinkos for law firms, copy, imaging services. And I would say this, every day was the worst day of my life. It was like, Fridays were happy, Sundays were miserable. I hated that job, and my back was against the wall. I was like in my early to mid 20s, and I was miserable. And I went through a process that I now know. It's a process that I believe somebody should go through every couple of years of finding my passion. And I didn't know about marketing at all, experiential marketing especially. But I wrote a long list of the things that I truly enjoy in life. And you have to be honest with yourself on this list. From events to liquor to women to creativity. I've always been a creative person. I always liked to draw. I loved partying at that point in my life, still do. And when you put all that on a piece of paper and you're looking at it and you start to, do your Googles, as they say, what kept popping up was media. So I was like, my first step was I wanted to create a website called Club Scouts that everybody can go to and see what clubs were popping, what DJs, where the park, what the bathrooms look like, what the bottle service. I wanted a Yelp for clubs, and failed miserably. But in that process, I met my mentors, and my mentors, Brian and Ray, had a company called Cities Tonight, which was one of the they were Inc. 500 magazine for one of the fastest growing companies that year, and they were a $5 million a year company, and these guys took me under their wing, and they really showed me what business I was in, and to answer your question, we were in the advertising business. I didn't realize that when you think of advertising, you think of above the line is what they call it. You think of TV, radio, print. That's advertising that you know of as traditional. But non-traditional advertising, still getting in front of people, is digital and experiential. And I focus heavily on experiential. So.
Word. So now, you said something about how there was a point in time where you decided to, and it sounds like you must have gone through some trials, whether it was externally or just internally, but you decided to write down everything that you cared about, you liked to do. What encouraged you to do that? How did you know to do that? Because it sounds like that also helped with whatever your next step was. You started a company, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But how did you know? encourage you to say, like, let me write down?
It's funny you say that. I mean, it was like, I believe that life gives you what you need. So I was working in essentially a paper company or a copy machine company or copy company. And we had pads of paper, legal pads, they're a little bit longer than the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I was miserable. I mean, imagine just going to work and being miserable. Like, you just don't, you know that your natural skill sets and abilities do not apply here. But I was making good money. I mean, I was 25, 26, making $95,000, $100,000 a year, but literally miserable. And when your back's against the wall like that, I think the first thing that I thought to even think of is like, what do I want to do? So I had some thoughts about going back and get my master's, and I talked to some family members, and they suggested that I get my master's degree. And I talked to some other people, professionals that I knew, and they were like, listen, what are you getting your master's for? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I do. I don't know what I like. And that led me to just let me write down all the things that I like. And it's a very emotional and private experience, because you don't put red tape around that list. You essentially write everything from ice cream to women to cars to suits to the beach, which, after you look at this jumbled list of things that you enjoy, you start to circle. I call it circling your day. I go back on that list and I circle everything that I could do for a living or just do every day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like ice cream. I want to eat ice cream every day.
Yeah.
But creativity. It's like I would love to be in a space to be creative every day. I like fashion and suits. I could see that being a part of my everyday life. And after you look at all these things that you've circled that you want to be a part of your core day, marketing came up, media came up, and then I kind of like fell into marketing.
And it sounds like, with that took a level of, either like you had or you developed during that time, like self-awareness to then understand, okay, this is maybe the next step I should take or to try out. Well, like when it came to that company you started, because you talk about you started that company, it didn't go as planned. But what was that like for you? Because was that your first foray into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I read an article in GQ that was like how to get fired, and I followed that, and I got fired, and and ultimately when they walked me out onto, if anybody's from Philly, like I got fired and the building was on 18th and Market, and they let me out the building on 18th and Ludlow, the little, get the hell out of here box with all your goods in it. And I made a decision right then, I would never work for anybody again.
Now, was this article in GQ, was it advising you on how to get fired, or was it that you just happened to do those things that was said in the article? Like, were you trying to get fired?
I think the article was something like how to get fired.
Yeah.
Respectfully or something like that. So, because ultimately, I didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any money, let's be clear. And I was like, if I get fired, I'm going to need some unemployment. And to give me a little, 6-month buffer. I don't know, 2 months. I didn't know at the time, but I knew that the way that I was being treated in the office, I knew I never wanted anybody to have control of my career like that again.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be, my ultimate kind of thought process was like, if I'd rather spend 10 years building my own thing, and I might have been like 25 or 26, and then be 36 and own my life, than to spend my entire life. My parents actually helped me out with this because they both have great jobs. My mom just retired from a long career, but she complained every day. She came home, I hate that place. Oh, I'm tired of these people. And I was like, I don't want to like build my life around becoming 65 and retiring. Like I want to live in between 25 and 65. I'd like to do some living.
Right.
And I just decided like I'm gonna take the hits of being an entrepreneur, which comes with a lot of social hits. You know, you're broke for a long time.
Yeah.
You know.
Can you talk about that first company you started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, the advice I would start with is that you have to find mentors. You can't just, you have to find people that are doing what you want to do or close to it. And I was lucky enough, you know, when you put your foot in the water of like entrepreneurship, which is the scariest part, you'd be surprised let's just say all the mentors swim to you sometimes. And what happened with me, I met those guys, Brian and Ray at Cities Tonight. I met Suleiman Rahman, who I believe you guys have already interviewed.
Shout out to Suleiman. Yeah, he was on the show.
Shout out, Suleiman, thank you. And you know, so a lot of these people taught me things. And the first mentors that I had, Brian and Ray, those guys didn't have the time or space for me. They were busy building a company. I ended up working for Suleiman briefly as a sales guy for his company. And then, you know, almost like let's just say like I was walking the fine line between entrepreneur and working for him. And that just wasn't getting me where I needed to go, and I started my own thing. And really the first initial setup, this is before Instagram really popped. So my first initial cost was just getting a website up. Websites, you had to have a website in order to even be legitimate back in the day. And that was how I started, just getting a website up. And I started a company called Philadelphia Status. And that was supposed to be essentially an online magazine showing you where to go, what to do in the social scene. When that did well, meaning people started going to the website, people started going to the events, Brian and Ray, my initial mentors, reached back out to me and were like, hey, listen, we have some opportunity in the multicultural space, in this agency space. And I'm like, well, what's an agency? And they're like, why don't you come back in and see if we can work together. And that's when I just basically stalked and followed those guys around every day and figured out the agency business, what they actually do for brands, how they sell it, how they package creative, and that's how I started my agency. Got you.
And it sounds like, you know, you mentioned the importance of mentorship and how, you know, if you see somebody who's either doing what you want to do or has, you know, achieved what you're looking to achieve, it can shorten the, you know, the timeline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk about the agency business. You know, what are maybe the biggest lessons you learned from you know, before right into it?
Agency business is anytime you sell creativity, it has to be packaged and there has to be, which is why I think that my degree means something. There has to be a high level of communication. You know, when you sell a beautiful sweatshirt, I didn't get the sweatshirt by the way.
Oh, we got you. You know.
Nah, but we
all use sweatshirt and pepper suit. So.
I need the suit. But I'll take the sweatshirt with the suit. I can't have it. It's a hot suit, right?
Oh yeah, it's hot.
Really. Yes, I can't wear the sweatshirt with the suit. But the question was, what was the question?
So the question was, you know, biggest lessons you learned from agency.
Yeah, how to package an idea, you know, and that's why I mentioned the shirt, the sweatshirt, is that you know what you're buying. You know, somebody buys a sweatshirt, you know, it comes in the mail, they receive it. But when you work with a company that has a problem and you're saying, I have this solution, but it's not tangible, there's a high level of communication, transparency, and creativity that you have to put on paper, and then so you have to tell them what you are going to do it, and then communicate what you did. And it's not the easiest process, but once you master it, you can go far in that world.
So now, these guys that you work for / with, and who became your mentors, was it that you worked with them for like a year and then you went off and did your own thing? Did you start something while you were there? And then what kind of work were they? What kind of companies were they working with during that time? Was it that this was an agency catered particularly to events? Was it you mentioned it was a hotel, hotel, like what?
So the guys that I work with, so you asked me a couple questions. The first question was, how did I kind of like get mentored by them, I believe, if I kind of broke that down right. I stalked them, and I don't think a lot of people will do this, which is, it's sad, but I took the time to learn their habits. Brian, he was the guy that had, flip-flop shorts and a t-shirt that said going fishing, and he liked sushi, and he lived in a part of the city that I knew where he liked sushi and margaritas, so I would camp out around a lot of those places in the part of the city that he lived, with literally no money, and then when he got there, I would spend my last on buying him a margarita and keeping him talking. I knew that Ray was a busybody, and Ray's the type of guy that will give you his time, but on his time. So meaning like, hey, listen, I got 10 minutes for you next Thursday, and as soon as you get there, you have to follow him around while he's running around. So imagine if you asked me a question, I was like, follow me. And I just started walking. You have to walk behind me, and I'm walking fast. It's a humbling experience, and they didn't do it to humble me, but I don't think a lot of people are going to do that. So that's how I got with those guys. And some of the clients that they had at the time were, and which is why I got into beverage, is all beverage companies, all liquor, beer companies. So, they're working with Diageo. They focused on general market, which transparently it's just, they focused on how to sell liquor and beer to white people. And at the time I was focusing on how to sell liquor and beer to black people. Black, brown, Hispanic, I was in the multicultural marketing space. So they taught me the framework, but we were speaking different languages.
And was that what sort of is that part of the reason why you targeted them as far as like, I want to learn from these guys, because you were kind of doing what they were doing in a different space?
Yeah, I targeted them
because it seems very intentional. You said you were going to find the same bars that they're at and whatnot.
Strictly off their life. So if you've worked in corporate America, you know that like every office has a similar look, feel. You got your cubes.
Yes.
It's got that smell to it. It's just corporate America. The first time I went to their office, they had Range Rovers and BMWs out front. You go up the elevator, a dog greets you at the elevator, and they're just like, oh, and then you got one guy that's walking around in a 3-piece suit, another guy that's got, flip-flops on, and you got all these interns and employees that are like kind of dialed into their laptops, almost like early Facebook vibes. Yeah. And they had bars in their office, and I was like, this is my vibe. Yeah. I want to do this. I don't want to be like in corporate America, they're still in corporate America. They're still working with corporations. Yeah. But the stiffness that I came from, I was like, nah, I like what they're doing.
Right, got you.
It felt very entourage.
Got you. And so now going into what you started from being in that space. Can you talk about the company? What do you say the name of the company?
My company now?
So the name of the company that you started out of working with?
Suleiman. It was at first it started as Philadelphia Status.
Philadelphia Status, right.
So I started doing events in Philadelphia, not to make money. but to grow an audience so that I can sell that audience to a brand that I work with. So luckily for me, when you put together an event and you don't charge and you make it nice and sexy, everybody shows up. And now you get the attention of the brands that you want to work with. And luckily for me, I was working with some mentors that can teach me how to package programming, which is, I would say programming is the level below campaigns. But they teach me how to practice small programs to sell to brands, liquor brands. And what happened was liquor companies and spirits brands and beer companies started to ask me, well, can you do that in Chicago? Can you do that in Florida? Can you do that in Atlanta? And I was like, yeah. And then those guys showed me how to package my product or my service to do nationally. So I changed the name from Philadelphia Status to the Status brand and created an agency.
Interesting. So you would pitch these different brands, you'd work with them, and you would basically, you would build this audience, and so it sounded like you're creating a lot of value, and you understood that, and so you're focused more on this value that you're creating versus the money that you're making, but sort of knowing that on the back end it would look different than if you were charging for these events that you were.
Yeah, I never wanted to be a promoter, so it wasn't about the money that I was making at events. That if you did make any money, it was like extra fun money. I wanted to get into building a business, an actual machine, where companies were coming to me and asking me to fix problems. And as much as I enjoy the art of the event, that's not necessary. That's only a very small part of the problem that you fix. Putting your brand in front of people. There's strategy, there's creative, there's a lot of different things that go into having an agency that focuses on experiential than the event. And that's what people see. So that's what they judge you on.
It's dope how, because when you started again, you were pitching these brands, and then it's almost as if like the table was turned, and it sounds like they were starting to come to you after. Well, was that your expectation, or was that something that you observed as time kind of went on?
I don't know if it was ever an expectation, but it's definitely something that I was appreciative of. I had a run where, if you do good work, somebody's going to hear about it. And if they don't hear about it, you can package it and tell somebody about it. Hey, I did this work for Coors Light. I could do this for Corona as well. And they're like, tell us more. So that's how that started to work.
And I imagine it must take a lot of, obviously a lot of planning, but also if you're doing something, you talk about creating a machine. So like the systems you have to put in place, the processes. Can you talk a little bit about some of that work that people don't see that goes into, because when someone goes to an event, they're just there, and it could even seem like, this doesn't take as much work as it really does, until as someone who's like started doing events, you realize it takes a lot of work. You can talk about some of those systems that you had to put in place, but then also given the lens you're kind of coming at it from, where you're packaging it in a way that would be attractive to these brands, just like the kind of work that went into that.
So you asked a layered question. The first question was, say the first part again. The mistake that I made early in was not creating. I got great advice from my mentor, but I didn't create a system. So I ended up, if anybody's read Rich Dad Poor Dad, the cash flow quadrant, where it's like employed, self-employed, business owner, investor. And a lot of times when you go from employed to self-employed, a lot of people think that's the biggest jump, and it's not. and you're so excited to make money as an entrepreneur that you stay in self-employment, which means you're only making money when you're working. A business is a system. So for 10 years, I didn't create a system. And
so you would consider yourself sort of in that self-employed quadrant.
Exactly.
Okay.
For over 10 years, I was definitely, if anything needed to happen, I had to push the ball forward.
Got you.
I had to do everything. And I got burnt out. So that definitely happened. But that was some early advice that I got. Build a business, don't build a job.
Yeah.
And I just built myself a job. I had to be at every event. I had to put my touch and taste on everything. I had to events. There was a lot of moving pieces, from the staff to managing people to just everything, especially when you're executing for a brand. And for me, I just had to have my finger on the pulse of everything. And that's the problem with that. It's hard to grow a company. So if I'm doing something in Chicago, I gotta be there. And if I'm doing a national tour, let's say I'm doing a 10-city tour, and let's just say that tour is, a $600,000 tour, I can't work on getting another deal until I'm done with that tour. Which means it's almost like, if anybody's in real estate, it's almost like flipping houses one at a time. It's like you can't grow if you're always working in the business and not on the business. So,
what created the mindset shift for you to be able to start thinking about how can I get more done without me being involved in everything? And because I think that's something that's definitely hard for a lot of people. And you talk about kind of like having to have your hand in everything going on, and it takes a mindset shift to be like, all right, let me let go of certain things, or let me put these people sort of in charge of these areas. Like, what created that mindset shift for you?
I would say that technically it's an entertainment business, and you're not getting any younger, and you can't be in Sean Combs is a great influence of mine, and I've always noticed that Diddy is always around the next generation of like rapper, artist, singer. Like, he's got his finger on the pulse of what's next and cool. And the harsh reality is, as cool as I think I am, and as creative as I think I am, I might be missing the mark on a younger generation or just a different subculture of African American communities. So it's like, how can I grow if I'm not cool anymore? You know what I'm saying? So I'm always going to think I'll be 120 years old thinking I'm cool. But at the end of the day, it was like, man, this is not a sustainable business. This is a business that I can grow out of if I don't systemize it and bring in the right people. Because everything that I'm selling is based off of my personal taste. So how do you grow a creative business when the only creative that you're selling is your own? You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Like, everybody's not going to dig my taste.
Gotcha. So it's almost like you were forced to
I saw
find ways to kind of keep your hand on the pulse of what was coming next, or what was.
I could still be doing that now, but I saw the gap in the road ahead. I saw that. I saw the pothole. So it was like, let me.
Gotcha.
Luckily for me, in 2017, I got a sizable deal with Miller Coors, and we launched out Coors Light's mobile app, and we did a 60-city tour, and then somebody offered to buy the company. So they bought the company, and that gave me some time to think about what I could create that is not so tied into my personal finger on the pulse, and I could systemize it. You know, there's a book that I read called Built to Sell, and it tells you how to productize your service. So ultimately, like, you know, Amazon delivers goods, but they have probably a 120 step process that goes through until you get that T-shirt in the mail. You know, and I didn't have that for my past business, so I wanted to create something that is working when I'm not, because my business stopped as soon as I went to eat breakfast. I'm not making any money. You know, it's like, so if I'm not on the phone, or if I'm not closing a deal, or if I'm not executing a campaign or a program or a concert, I'm not making money.
Wow, that's definitely a lot there, and I don't want to glance over the fact that you know, you talked about selling that business in 2017, was it?
Yeah, November.
Can you talk a little bit about that business? You said it was a 60 city tour, and it was deal with Miller Coors.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about you know, like talk a little more about that?
Sure. So the program or the campaign in itself was we got the business from their agency of record. So Walt and Isaacson is an agency in Chicago. They oftentimes, a small agency like mine that doesn't want to, that can't get direct to brand on every deal, goes through the agency that they work with, you know, primarily. And their Coors Light wanted a loyalty rewards program, so we were involved with a mobile app that they created called Coors Light XP, stands for Experience. So most experiences had something to do with sports. So the mobile app was basically like, when you buy a case of Coors Light, there would be an XP code on the case. You type that into your app, you gain a certain amount of points. When you get to a certain amount of points, you win certain experiences, whether it would be like going into the locker room at the Rose Bowl or something like that. So I'm not a football guy, but I've literally been to every football stadium in America at this point, because you know, we went to every college football stadium and set up a footprint in the tailgate. So imagine, you know, Ohio State's playing. We have to go to Ohio State, set up, you know, a 50 by 50 area, hire staff, create a Coors Light football zone, people to come in, throw footballs, have an experience, and then while they're there, we engage them with downloading the app. Our job was to create an initial buzz amongst the target consumer around the country with the app. And if we get X amount of downloads, what they call KPIs, key performance indicators. So when you work in a business where you deliver a service, it's like, well, how do you know if you delivered the service? If you're my client, you're going to tell me, here are the key performance indicators to let us know that this was a win. So a win for us was 500 downloads across, or 500,000 downloads across this 60 city tour over the course of, you know, I think it was like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And you know, just think about all the small details, from hiring the right people to making sure that they have all the giveaways, what they call POS, point of sale, merchandise to give away. We had to make sure that they had, they were properly uniformed, they were trained, they each had iPads. You know, we had to make sure, we found out, you know, last minute that if you're in a town with 1 million extra people in it, because Ohio State's playing another school, guess what? Nobody can download anything on their phone. So we had to bring in, you know, bonded Wi-Fi, just like a Wi-Fi signal just for our area, which cost an extra $20,000 a city. So it was just like a lot of moving pieces. You pack up, you move out, you fly to the next city. So,
And then what was the process of selling that company? Did he sell was it the mobile app? Was it the
so no,
service?
that was with that part of the business was just our last campaign.
Gotcha.
And because the that campaign made us look pretty good because we had worked with some pretty let's just say high value clients from Miller Coors, McDonald's to Diageo. A company another agency on the rise, a holdings company, bought our agency.
Got you. Wow. And you know, and like I'm trying to get a little bit into the nitty gritty of so we can kind of peel back the curtain into what it looks like. And you know, when it comes to because it sounds like that was also would you say that was a very pivotal moment for you when you sold that company? And so for people, I mean, most people, go through their whole careers, even if you are in business, like that's not something that most people actually end up accomplishing. So like on the back end of that, what does that look like to actually go through the process of selling a company?
Well, you hire brokers for that.
Okay.
A lot of the paperwork, but I'll say I'm not I'm a creative and I'm a pretty decent sales guy. But I will say this: imagine dating, and you have to make yourself look like, act like, talk like the kind of guy for the girl you want, right? Or for the
I was about to pause there and say that Mike is also somewhat of a relationship coach. Would you consider yourself a relationship coach?
I'm starting a platform.
I don't know who follows him on Instagram here, but I know you got your Blue Couch Talk.
Blue Couch Talk.
And you might want to tune into that because
we'll talk. Yeah, we'll close out.
A lot of riveting conversation.
But I mean, honestly, business is a lot like dating. It's you want, you work out. We live close by. I see you in the gym. You see the basketball court. I'm sure you're well read. You groom yourself so that hopefully the person of your liking finds you attractive.
Right. And
as you look to sell your company, that's what you do. Who would find me attractive based off of my criteria? And we're a small experiential agency, so obviously you're going to look for a little bit larger of a company that can afford you, that is struggling with experiential. Maybe a company that only does creative, which is a sexy way of saying graphic design. Maybe a company that does all above the line, which is TV, radio, print, and is like looking to dive into experiential. So you start to groom yourself, get your books right, get the right type of clients, get the right relationships within those clients, because that's ultimately what you're selling is your relationships, your methodology on how you produce what you produce. So you have to start to put to document a lot of your procedures, how you produce what you produce, and your selling relationships every day. So when you package that together and you sell it, it's almost like putting yourself together for the type of person that you want to date.
Yeah. And it's first of all, that's one of an analogy, but I also want to say that process of selling an agency it's interesting because when you think about businesses that get sold, something like an agency, something that's a lot more alive. Like when you talk about literally selling relationships, it's imagine something that's like a lot more moving pieces. It's not just you have this product that you're shipping over. So that's interesting. Yeah, so you sold that company, and there's something that I've heard you speak about before that I'd like you to expand on, and it's this idea of you've talked about getting a bag, but not being told what to do once you get the bag. Now, like a lot of people are like they focus on getting to the bag, getting the bag. You hear it all the time, and a lot of people who even teach it. But But what happens, after that, after you've achieved that goal or reached that milestone? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned after you've quote unquote got into the bag?
Fumbled the bag. Just to give myself some level of credibility and some background, because business, it's not just business. Like this is your life. I lost my mother in 2016, and thank you. And right around then, I got busy, which was great for me. I kept moving and I kept working, and I was on 2 national tours. So basically, I was home 1 day a week to do laundry, pack bags, and fly out the next day for basically the balance of 2017. Sold the company in 2017, and then now you're sitting with, and I don't want to say too much because still dealing with the IRS. Our guys over at the IRS, I don't have it. But no, ultimately, we focus in on, as a culture, getting a bag, making money. And if you focus on making money, eventually you will. It's just not rocket science, and there's some dumb people out there that's making money. So you can make money. But the question comes, because once you make money, you're going to be sitting there in your apartment, in your house, in your cardboard box, wherever you live, and you're going to look in your account, and it's going to be full. And then it's like, well, what do you do? And for me, I was scared to ever be broke again. So you have to realize this. As soon as you have money in your account, it's on review. Somebody's looking at it. And, the lights are on in here. The internet is on in here. You're spending money every day, whether you go out or not. Like, money's being spent. Your Netflix account, everything, money's being spent every day. So what I wish somebody had told me, and I come from a middle class family that we didn't struggle, but my parents had that don't talk about money vibe to them. Like, mind your business, little boy type of deal. And which I can appreciate, but I also wish they kind of could tell me what to do with money. And if I could give any advice, spend money on something that makes money. I would very rarely keep a lot of money in a bank account. I would buy things that either hold their value or make you money every month. And I'll give you a very simple strategy that I'm going to employ next time around, which is going to happen. If you make, let's just say, you have a cash influx of $150,000 in your account. The IRS is going to take, 40% of that. So, or you could, let's just say, take $20,000 out, put it into your account, so you have some operating cash, and now you have 130. I would take 130 and personally just buy a house and rent it. I personally would buy cash. Make sure it's in an area that's not depreciating in value, but increasing in value. But you essentially just took that 130,000 and you put it in the bank of Mike's house, and I would just call that 123 Main Street LLC, and I would take it as a $130,000 loss as a business, and that $130,000 loss would bring me $1,500 of rent money every month. So now, if, for example, a global pandemic happens, I'm not just spending my $150,000 that I had saved every month. Yeah. That money's away, but I'm making $1,500 every month, free and clear. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if you do that, 10 times, that's 15,000. 1,500 times 10 is 15,000. Now you have essentially a $15,000 a month business. And I know people that are in their mid-30s that make 20 grand a month and retire. The old thought process of retiring because you have $1 million saved or $2 million saved, to me is whack. It's like you can retire with $100,000 in the bank and you're making $15,000 every month for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So something I'm hearing here is, putting your money in places where it can, it can grow, where you can start growing wealth, or vehicles to, start further growing wealth. But I'm also hearing this idea of recurring revenue or income. Like a lot of people think about saving or think about, getting to a certain number, but you're talking about, okay, what can you do so that, let's say you were to retire, or let's say you stop working, or you didn't feel like working for a period of time, you have money coming in that's recurring.
Absolutely. And it's self-banking. I mean, let's just say, knock on wood, that nothing horrible happens, but if it does, you liquidate a house and you pay for it. Right? That's how I want to operate moving forward. Yeah. Because having a bunch of money in your account, I've never felt more broke than when I had a lot of money. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I hit the ground with nothing before, and I felt empowered to make more money every day. But I never felt so broke with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in my account and just been like, damn, I have less than I did yesterday. And then you start to grow fear, and you don't spend it on investments because you just want to see the money in the account. So there's been times where I tried to do one real estate deal and I lost about $5,000, and that was all the fear. All that fear just hit me, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just sit on this cash, and that cash it goes down every day. And then one day you get a call and it's like, hey, it's Uncle Sam. We need to talk. And it's
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate you going in depth about that, and moving on to Illustrious. So this is your new venture.
Yes.
Can you talk about what it is and what inspired you to start it?
Sure. So Illustrious is actually the complete name is Illustrious Endeavors, and illustrious for short. Illustrious is being well known and admired for something that you did in the past. I want to make sure that all my work, when I wake up tomorrow and do work, I want to make sure that it's good enough to be remembered for it. And endeavors is the pursuit. So it's really every day when I wake up and I look at that name, it's like a mission statement. But ultimately what it is a holding company. And in my time off, 2018, I didn't work, and I was really just trying to think about what I was going to do next. I realized there's 3 areas that you need in order to be successful in business in this new era. You need an audience, you need a seat at the table or a strategy, and you need relationships. So I'll give you an example. When you look at like Essence magazine, you think of them as a magazine, but really they're just they have an audience. Their strategy is Essence Fest. I don't think they're operating. Their lights are not staying on by ad revenue right now. It's nice. It's almost like throwing an event. It's like I'm letting people in. I just want to build my audience. If I charge a couple people, cool, but I want to build my audience. The strategy for me was brand marketing. Working directly with brands to make money. For Essence, it would be working directly with brands to produce large-scale experiences like the Essence Fest. Essence, as a whole, is an experiential company at this point. And ask yourself, what black woman can Essence get in touch with? And if you break down anybody like that, think about Jay-Z. Jay-Z is a rapper. Do you think Jay-Z's selling rap right now? It's like that's his audience. But think about the tables that Jay-Z's sitting at. Think about some of the strategies with his companies. And then what artist, what person can't Jay-Z get on the phone with? So Illustrious Endeavors is essentially that matrix of building audience, still having the core agency strategy where I'm working with brands and building relationships through different media platforms, One of them, which you had mentioned, is Blue Couch Talk.
Yeah.
So it's a dating platform. It's hard. The tagline is about black men for black women. But that's just one platform. We have another platform called Doers Lab, which is a mentorship platform. So instead of getting every, late 20-year-old, early 30s, like expert advice on how to grow your business to $1 million business, chances are that person with 250,000 Instagram followers they're not working in the business that they're selling you information on. My mentors have like 100 followers on Instagram, and those guys are millionaires. And I want to if you want to start an agency, I want to put you on a Zoom call with that guy, not the guy with 500,000 followers. If you want to start developing products, I want to get you on a Zoom call with Alexander John, who designs for Puma and Nike. And so those are some of our digital platforms, along with Filter, which is our experiential arm, which means events. That's the easiest way to say events. But when I work with brands, I still want to have a vehicle to produce upscale, sexy black and brown events.
Okay, wow. So I noticed that first of all, it's powerful, and I noticed that it's very hyper focused in experiential marketing place. So really continuing to build on that. I'd like to go into some of your philosophies around goal setting. So something that you talked about is your perfect day, and that's something that I literally took notes on, because I was like, I never heard that before, explained in that kind of way, and you were very descriptive too in how you explained it. Can you talk a little bit about what this idea of the perfect day is, and why it's important?
So I call it the perfect average day.
Perfect average day.
Yep. So the best way to put this is, I've lived a life, and I'm sure you all have, where we're destination driven. So you graduate college, and you spend 4 years trying to graduate college, and you graduate, and it's like, now what? And there's like a new life that starts over after that. It doesn't matter what car you get. I don't care if you want a Bentley, Jag, whatever you want. As soon as you get it, 2 months later, it's just going to be a car. I don't care what house you want. It's just going to be a house in 6 months. And I found myself in this destination envy stage of life, where I try to get something, I get it, and that not to plug Blue Couch, but that's another destination envy happens with somebody you might be dating. You try your hardest to get a woman, and you get her, and then what? Now y'all just, a lot of women do it with marriage. I want to get married, and you need to marry me, and you married, and the day after your wedding, you're like, you just married now. It's the same shit, And it started to me thinking, like, what is the solution to that? And the perfect average day is a way to be happy working in the process every day. There is no destination. So I tell people to be very creative in the script about what you want in your most perfect average Tuesday. So sometimes you ask people like, what's your perfect average day? And they're like, oh, I wake up on the beach, and it's like, well, don't you have kids? I'm like, what they? What, you just got rid of them? Like, how do you, like, what? And I'll give you an example that, just to be really just kind of clear, it's like, I wake up at 5:30. I have a tattoo here. So the average millionaire wakes up at 5:30. So I wake up at 5:30 every day. I look over the woman that I'm with. Doesn't, I don't know if we have to be married or we're just together, but she's there. I have a very big bedroom with with windows that look out to water and have like a little balcony. I throw on my gym clothes. I get into an old beat up pickup truck, like a Fred Sanford and Son pickup truck, and I go to the gym and I get, my trainer works me out. Come home, kids are at the island eating, we all have our little handshakes. I grab a coffee, dap everybody up. I go upstairs to my own closet. I don't share a closet with anybody. And I get centered. I take a shower, I sit down, I pick a suit, I write a little bit, my journal real quick, and then I go downstairs. I make sure everybody's good. You going to school? Okay, you got it. Okay, everybody's good. All right, I'm out. I go into my garage and I get into a much more offensive car. Let's say it's a white Aston Martin, the red interior. I have a red car cover. I pull it off and I get in the car, and then I get on my morning conference calls on my way to the office. By the time I get to the office, it's 8:30. My assistant hands me a red portfolio, and I can look and see what's going on in my day from right there. I might not have the office anymore after I sold the company, but I have a red portfolio. I mean, we're neighbors. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you see the red car cover downstairs. I'll build out my day little by little. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't date a woman that I can't imagine waking up next to. I wouldn't. If I would buy an old beat up pickup truck, and everybody's gonna be like, why would you do that? Because it just makes me feel good. Yeah. And my day goes on and on and on. But this is something that you can flip and switch over the years. Yeah. Because if you have, I want to get married. Once you get there, it's just you're done. I want to build a day that just kind of, and also the type of people that you allow in your life. Yeah. Have to be congruent with that day as well. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a perfect average day.
Perfect average day.
Got you. Man, so we've been going on for about an hour. I want to ask you just a couple more questions. So something that we tend to like to ask on these shows is, for people who are tuning in, or people who maybe like upcoming entrepreneurs, what advice do you have for your younger self? If you were talking to 25-year-old Mike, what would you tell him as he's navigating the landscape?
I'm going to just remix some advice that I got in 2018, which was find out what you enjoy and love to do and do well, and find a way to do that. Don't look for, a lot of times entrepreneurs look for what somebody else is doing completely wrong, and they try to build an entire business around that, and I tried that. I did that at one point where I was like, agencies are messing up, they need to do this, and it's like, I think you should focus on what you are uniquely good at and find a way to do that, because you'll have less competition and you will ultimately always be happy. The other advice that I would give is don't base success purely off of money, because money is like water. It's going to come and go. When you don't have it, momentum is what keeps you going, and you don't want your momentum to slow because your money is. And oftentimes, people have a different view of themselves when their money is low. And then the last thing I would say is, and I just wrote in my journal the other day, we live in a social media era where everyone is getting validation, whether you like to admit it or not, through likes, comments, whatever. And I'm not going to say I'm immune to it. So personally, what I've decided to do is build a small validation circle of people that I really trust, and I don't give a can we curse on this?
Yeah, you can.
I don't give a fuck what they think. So I stopped looking at Instagram comments, how many likes, and if I do something creatively, or if I want a comment on my outfit, there's only like 4 people that I really care about what they think. And I call on them a lot. What do you think about this? Call her up, call her down. Or what do you think about this idea that I have for this business? What do you think about that picture I posted? So really, just if you need validation, don't front like you don't, but create a validation circle and only give a shit what those people think. Because having the world have access to you is too heavy for anyone.
Something I hear in that, especially with the last thing you said about maybe communicating with just a few people on advice or feedback, is also this hyper focus, and something that I see come up again with you is being very focused on what it is that you want, what it is that you're looking to achieve. Even the way you go about, talk about the perfect average day, how descriptive it is. It's very focused. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of, say, being focused, and specifically when it comes to working on an idea or ideas? Because some people maybe working on like 5 different things, 7 different things, and people have different philosophies on how to kind of go about just like executing. But something that I have noticed, and specifically with you too, is when you're focused on one or fewer areas versus kind of being spread out in different places. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Focus. I believe focus comes from interest. So it's very important, that you find something that you're interested in, because you can't fake focus. It's very hard for me to focus on something or someone that I have no interest in. But I can obsess over something.
That's a word right there, right? You can't fake focus.
Yeah, it's like I grew up playing basketball. Nobody ever had to tell me to go outside and practice. It was just like you had to tell me to come inside because it's snowing or something. But it's like, so you can't fake focus. What I would say is that, and I learned this, everybody says have discipline. Discipline is a muscle. If you and I went to the gym at some point, our muscles will fail us. If we just go work out and lift weights for 5 hours, our muscles are going to fail us. But what won't fail you is your routine. So for me, I use discipline very briefly. Let's just say I can use discipline for 10 to 20 days to build a routine on something that I enjoy. So it's kind of a matrix. It's like I have to use discipline for a marginal amount of time, 20 days, to build a routine. I don't have to, once a routine is set and I'm doing it, I don't have to think about it, but it's gotta be something I enjoy. So that's kind of my matrix of if I have to focus too much, I don't like this shit. So it's like, first like it, and that comes with people that you hang with, work that you're gonna do, make sure you like it. Then, give yourself a little discipline. 10 days, 5 days. I don't care if it's somebody you're dating or a business. It's like, let me just focus on this person for 10, 20 days. Let me just focus on this business for 10, 20 days. Build a routine around it. Once the routine is set, you do the same shit every day because you are used to that. Again, I don't know, we're neighbors. Sometimes you come in, I know your routine, you come into the garage and you just sit in your car for like 10 minutes and rock out. That's just your routine. But you don't have to focus on doing that. Right. Just imagine if you just had to keep yourself in the car. Like that would be impossible, right? So that's kind of my matrix around that question.
Okay, cool. So working hard, working smart is a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So illustrious endeavors. If people want to find out more about what's going on with it, I know you've got your different brands on it. Under it, Doers Lab, you mentioned Blue Couch Talk on it. How can they find out more about illustrious endeavors, and then just kind of stay tuned to what you got going on?
I'm easy to reach. I mean, I think the best way to reach me now is Instagram. Michael_Morrow, MORROW, like tomorrow. I'm growing every day. I mean, the process of building what I want to build out is a slow process. So everything's not perfect right now. My biggest focus, and funny we say focus because I'm interested in it, is Blue Couch Talks. Because I just see more and more like energy given towards black and brown people dating, and I have a philosophy, and I'm a decent communicator, so that's kind of where I'm focused in right now, on just building that platform out. But yeah, the best way to reach me, or if you're interested in anything I'm doing or need to connect, Michael_Morrow on Instagram.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank everyone who has tuned in to Pepper Soup Talk. Again, this is our first talk of the year. We're here bi-weekly on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Mike Morrow here, experiential marketer, relationship coach.
Thanks for having me. Exactly. A little bit of everything.
And any parting words?
Really, man. Congratulations and thank you for having me, number one. So I know when you guys started this, it was last year, and you guys did it. So thank you. A lot of people talk about it. You actually did it. The only parting words I would add is, find what you enjoy. It's not gonna be a heavy lift if you enjoy it. So take the time, take some time away. If you just find yourself working and grinding, that's a muscle that's going to fail eventually. Find what you enjoy, and ultimately, stuff will start coming to you if you really like it.
With that, have a good rest of your weekend. We'd like to hear from you. We want to know how we did. We want to get your feedback. So feel free to slide into our DMs at One Jollof. And until next time, this is Pepe Soup Talk.